This episode is brought to you by Starry. When you drink Starry Lemon Lime Soda, every sip is a win. Perfect for game time or anytime. It's a crisp, refreshing lemon lime soda that's caffeine-free and bursting with flavor that makes you go, ah. Starry hits different. Find it in stores or online today.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those are numbers. But you already knew that. If you want to know what number you're going to pay each month for your car, use Kelly Blue Book My Wallet on Auto Trader. They're really good at numbers. Auto Trader.
Hey, I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul.
Swallow this.
Hello, welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave, and I'm one of the two hosts of this luxurious podcast.
Oh, hello, and I'm Rich, and I'm the other host of this luxurious podcast. Think of me as Dorothy to Dave's Toto. I've got some snazzy, shiny red shoes, and he's my furry little companion.
I'm always the sidekick, aren't I? The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we quite often drift off and talk about other things, just life in general, and sometimes other movies.
We do that. We also like to drop some spoilers because we talk about lots of films. So if we talk about a film you haven't seen or you don't know anything you know about, have you thought about DJing? Just go away. Learn how to be a DJ. It's very quick, I believe. Come back, listen to the rest of the episode, and it's all going to be fine. Because on today's episode, we are joined by Chris Hewitt.
Chris is a brilliant film writer. He writes for Empire magazine, and I'm sure you'll recognise his voice as the brilliant host of the Empire Film Podcast.
Yeah, we're very excited to sit down with Chris and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Chris Hewitt's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
Do you remember the first sequel that you watched when you were young? Or one you got really excited about when you were in your younger days?
Holy cow, that's a good question. God, probably, oh my God, Aliens.
Really?
Yeah, Aliens is the first one that pops into my head because I would have been about 9 or 10 when Aliens came out. So it was 1986, so it probably came out in video around about the tail end of 86 or early 87. I was much too young to watch it, but watch it I did numerous times. So that was one I was massively excited about. I don't remember whether I had seen Alien, although I think I had at that point. My parents didn't care, which will become abundantly clear about my viewing choices.
I'm so jealous of all these parents that didn't care about ratings and just let you watch whatever.
They didn't care. They were bringing me to the video store. What do you want? I want that. Okay, as an 18, it's fine. You go get it. And even my dad would have got it for me. I remember running down my grandmother, my mum and dad's hometown of Portadown in Northern Ireland to go and buy the Aliens Special Edition when that came out, and I was only about 12 or so, and they just sold it to me in the shop. So they didn't really mind back then. So yeah, I would say that would be one of the first ones that I was really, really aware of properly. Aliens.
But you can't remember watching Aliens. So were you anticipating it, or did you just go, I wonder what this is, it sounds cool?
I must have seen Alien. I must have done, because I must have been excited about it. Because I was waiting for it to come out. And I remember the day it did come out in my hometown of Banbridge in Northern Ireland, we went around different video stores because it was booked out, it was rented out, it was so popular, and we had to go to this was back in the day when a small town could sustain four video stores, and we went to the fourth, and my dad had to sign up to be a member of this place because they had a copy of Aliens. And I don't think it's quite like, I remember watching Commando around the same time. Again, Parents just did not give a shit. And I remember watching Commando 6 times in one day because we had to get it back to the video store. So we were just, me and my friends were like, this is the greatest film of all time. This is incredible. We must watch this as often as we possibly can. So yeah, but Aliens wasn't quite like that. Although I that was the first one I remember salivating over, Aliens, but there would have been other ones. I grew up with my dad watching lots of war movies and westerns and detective thrillers, so I would have been aware of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Dollars trilogy. I would have probably seen those around that time. I would have seen at least 2 or 3 of the Dirty Harry sequels. So Magnum Force and Sudden Impact and The Enforcer and things like that. I wouldn't have known which order they came in. Deadpool wasn't made by that point, but I would have seen them. So things like that, and war movies. I would have seen the Dirty Dozen, The Next Mission, because I don't think that was made until 1987. But stuff like that, The Magnificent Seven, Right Again, things like that. So I was aware of the concept of sequels by a very early age.
So you get excited by them. That's not meant to sound rude.
Do I find them sexually gratifying? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, the promise inherent in the Magnificent Seven Ride Again was not fulfilled, I have to say. But what can you do? The Dirty Dozen, The Next Mission isn't quite as sordid as it sounds. But yeah, I think I did. I just, from a very early age, Police Academy was the movie I watched most when I was a kid growing up. Star Wars. Every time someone asks me one of these questions, I forget about Star Wars, which is, until the MCU came along, for me, the greatest of all franchises. Yeah. Of course, Empire Strikes Back. I remember going to see Empire Strikes Back. I remember going to see Return of the Jedi in the cinema in 1983. So there you go. That predates Aliens. Return of the Jedi in 1983. And being massively excited about it, and going to see Superman 3 in the same year, and being massively excited about that. Like, cinema trips that were huge for me.
It's all coming back now.
It's all coming back to me, like Celine Dion. It's all coming back to me now, and I remember. I just love sequels. I love things that continue the story, and as a kid, you have no quality threshold. So Superman 4 is as good as Superman 2, which of course is not the case now. But,
I could defend Superman 3, but Superman 4.
Superman 3, I could talk to you all day about. If you want to do a podcast on Superman 3, we'll do a podcast on Superman 3. But Superman 4, no.
No. Yeah, we've had that as someone's worst sequel, haven't we, Dave?
Yeah, it was truly abysmal. I've never seen it before, really.
A lot of Milton Keynes in the
of Milton Keynes, more than you would expect in a Superman movie.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, absolutely.
Twinned with Metropolis.
Me and Dave live very close to Milton Keynes, and I've sat there watching it going, that's the bus station. That's not the UN, that's the bus station.
Yeah, it's wild. I've been watching a lot of, I think I can pull back the curtain on this, no one cares. We just did a ranking. We do this thing in the magazine called The Ranking, where we take a franchise or a director's work, and we, Empire Magazine, in case people don't know who I am, and we rank them. And we recently did, in fact yesterday, we did the Planet of the Apes. We did all 9 Planet of the Apes movies. Brilliant. So I revisited all the Planet of the Apes movies for that, and I hadn't seen the original sequels for a long time, like 30 years, because I'm very old, and 25-30 years, and I was surprised. It's the Superman 4 syndrome of the budget just stops. You can see it. You can almost feel the day that the studio bean counter goes up to the director and go, no, can't do that. You want an ape army? We've got 4 disgruntled extras. How about that? And Superman 4 is very much like that, sadly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are all the Planet of the Apes ones now? There's Conquest, there's Battle, there's Underneath, is there?
Well, Dave, you're talking to an expert now. I'm well versed in these movies. So there's Brilliant. Planet of the Apes, obviously. Then there's Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which is a utterly bonkers retread until it isn't, and then it becomes the most bleak and nihilistic thing you've ever seen. That ends with everybody dying on the planet, like everyone just has a cataclysmic explosion. Started by Charlton Heston, spoiler alert. Then there's Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where they managed to have Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter's chimpanzees get into a spacecraft off screen at the end of Beneath, and then they travel back in time to present day Earth. And that's really bleak as well. And then there's Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and then it ends with Battle for the Planet of the Apes. But that's really Battle for the Budget of the Planet of the Apes, because that's the one where they have no money left whatsoever.
So did you include the remake in this ranking as well?
I did, yeah, I did. Not as bad as I remember.
Rich is a big defender of the remake.
I've had a lot of shade in this podcast for defending the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, and it's not necessarily I defend it because I know it's not a great movie, but I just quite liked it.
It's fine.
I found it. The costumes are good. It's not horrific.
No one died.
It's all right,
at least to my knowledge. So we're good.
It's possibly the worst one, but that's fine. It's okay.
Not the worst one. I'm telling you, it's not the worst one.
I've not seen most of the older sequels. I think I've seen the second sequel, but I think I've seen any of that.
I couldn't tell you which one's a which anymore.
I could do a PowerPoint right now if you wanted to. But there's Beneath the Planet of the Apes is for me the worst one. I'm not saying that's where it came in the Empire ranking.
Oh yeah,
People will have to find out for themselves when they read the magazine, or maybe one day listen to the podcast. I'm a bit flaky when it comes up to putting those as podcasts, but it's fine. It's fine. But yes, the Beneath is terrible.
Do you still get the same excitement with sequels now than you did like previously? Still not meant to sound rude. As in your job.
Yes, I do.
Good.
Because if I didn't, I'd be in trouble. Quite frankly, no, I do. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is an extraordinary creation, and I get excited for each new installment. Massively so. I think we have an example in cinemas right now of a truly great sequel, which surpasses the original, which is Top Gun Maverick. And not just, for my money, not just surpasses the original by a narrow margin, but by a huge, great, big, whacking country mile.
I'm really glad you didn't say Jurassic World Dominion then, because...
But the thing is, everyone's it's like opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. There will be someone out there who will defend Jurassic World Dominion and say it's the best one and say it's better than the original.
There are 5-star reviews out there for it.
No, they're not.
I don't know what they're watching.
You've just made that up. That's a claim you can't back up with science.
I guarantee if you Google it now, you'll find a 5-star review for it.
Life found a way.
What is your best sequel ever? Can't wait for this one.
Well, Dave, this is a really tricky question, because how do you narrow it down to one movie? But also a really easy question, and anyone who's heard me bang on about this,
I think
movie,
we both knew what the answer was going to be, actually.
Well, it's one of those things where I didn't want to pick this, but I kind of have to pick this because it's my favorite movie of all time, and it just happens to be a sequel, and it's Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, to give it its full title. Sam Raimi's phenomenal follow-up to the ultimate experience in grueling terror. So it's even better than the ultimate experience in grueling terror, which was the Evil Dead. And this is Evil Dead 2, which is just a sublime piece of movie making, and really chunky and cheap at the same time, but I love it.
Yeah, as soon as we asked you your picks and we were waiting for them to come back, I was like, Rich, just watch Evil Dead 2. I'm pretty sure he's going to go Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, we were convinced on that one already.
I
actually watched it at 7 o'clock this morning, which is a weird experience.
That's a great time to watch Evil Dead 2. How was it? What do you think? Had you seen it before? Was it your first time?
I had seen it before, but not for a very long time. And at least 20, I think I watched it at university 20 years ago. But I really liked it. It's really it's a lot funnier than I remember it.
Yeah.
It's incredibly funny. The bit where the eyeball flies through the air and lands in the girl's mouth. I think that's comic genius.
It's just the whole thing. There's not a single frame I would change. It's just glorious to me.
Was this a VHS video shop run?
Yeah, no. What Evil Dead 2 was. I'm saying was a lot, but it's fine. You can just cut those out and just make my sentence seem nonsensical. So what Evil Dead 2 was we had video. What were they called? Video sales. So there would be a traveling video sale would come to my hometown of Banbridge, and they would sell extra-rental video cassettes at the local nightclub. So on a Saturday morning, it would turn into these video fairs. That's what they were. They were video fairs. And so I went down armed with pocket money and with my dad, and we went around and we saw all the extra-rental video cassettes. And this was at the time when I was kind of seriously getting into film through things like Empire, and Total Film didn't exist back then. The other film magazine didn't exist back then. Neon didn't exist back then. So it was mainly Empire that was giving me and Starburst, magazines like that were getting me into film. And so I remember going around this place and picking up a bounty of stuff. X-rental tapes back then were 30, 40 quid to buy an X-rental video. And this is before things came out in retail. And they were going here for £5 a pop. And I had enough money to buy 5 or 6. So I bought some titles I knew and I loved. Things like Lethal Weapon 2, there's another sequel for you. Things like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there's another sequel for you. But my eyes lit upon Evil Dead 2, which I'd never seen, but which I had heard of through Jonathan Ross's Incredibly Strange Film Show, which if people don't know what that is, it was an extraordinary Channel 4 series. Ran for a couple of series, I think, in the 1980s. Hosted by Jonathan Ross, who is a massive film geek, and he spotlighted cult directors from around the world. And one of those cult directors was Sam Raimi. And so I watched this Sam Raimi documentary and an interview with Sam Raimi, and I was just blown away by the clips that I was seeing. Things like, I'd heard of The Evil Dead, but I don't think I'd seen it at that point because it was banned, because it was video nasty. I hadn't seen his second film, Crime Wave. So this would have been around about 1989, 1990. So it would have been probably just before Darkman comes out. And so I thought, this Evil Dead 2 looks like the business. So I saw it and I went, I want that. And I got it home and I watched it, and my life changed. it was incredible. I had never seen filmmaking like it before. I'd never seen a director as playful before. I'd never seen a director try things like Raimi tries in that movie before. And it was a come to Jesus moment for me. Except Jesus in this case was a bloke with a chainsaw on the end of his arm.
Yeah, which is not, if you're 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, what's not to love about a bloke with a chainsaw for an arm?
I mean, that's an upgrade on Jesus for me. That's a controversial statement to say, but John Lennon got away with it, so I think I could do as well.
I'm confused by Evil Dead 2. Does it ignore the first one, or is it supposed to be a recap of the first one, or
a remake because they had more money?
It's having its cake and eating it. And they do the same thing with Army of Darkness, the third movie, in that each Evil Dead movie directed by Sam Raimi remakes the previous movie in the first 2 minutes of the next movie. So they don't do that thing like the Planet of the Apes films do, or the Rocky films do, where the first 5 minutes is usually like just a previously on with stock footage, or not even stock footage, just footage from the last film. Raimi, I think it might have been driven by rights issues, but also I think he wanted to streamline the story a little bit. So Raimi wanted to basically start Evil Dead 2 where the Evil Dead ends. So the Evil Dead ends with the now famous POV shot of the evil, which is always seen from the evil's POV, this creeping, crawling camera going through the forest and then through this cabin. So the Evil Dead, it goes through the cabin and emerges the other side of the cabin. Bruce Campbell, who's the sole survivor, as Ash in the first movie, turns around, screams at the camera, goes right up to his face, cut to black. That's the end of the Evil Dead. And then for Evil Dead 2, he basically, as you saw this morning, he picks it up from that exact point with this deranged, incredible shot where it picks him up, flies him through the air, smacks him against trees, which were actually manipulated by Sam Raimi himself, smacking Bruce Campbell, who's like one of his oldest friends, in the face, scratches his eyes, scratches his hands, and then thumps into a tree, falls down into a puddle, gets possessed, and we're off to the races. So he wanted to do that. I think he wanted to streamline it so that there was a focus on just one other character with Ash rather than 4 other characters with Ash. So we see his girlfriend Linda get possessed, get killed, and then again we're off to the races. So I think that's partly what he wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favourite scene? What makes it the magic for you?
Oh, the magic. I mean, where do you start? For me, it's when I think about it, I think about the montages. I think it has one of the great tooling up sequences in cinema history, which is this beautiful sequence of short cuts, very, very short, sharp, quick edits as Ash is slowly putting together his chainsaw and his sawn-off shotgun, and then as the which is just all sound effects, and then wonderful over-the-top Foley work, and then as he has finished tooling up, because at this point he's full badass Mad Max, Dirty Harry, action hero, rather than the craven coward he is for the first hour of the film. The camera pushes in towards him and the music rises. Joe LaDuca's very heroic music, on a budget, obviously. And then he says the immortal word, groovy.
I love it.
He spins a shotgun. He chainsaws a shotgun. He breaks it off, so it's a sawn-off shotgun. He spins it round, which is really difficult to do, I'm guessing. Puts it into his holster and then says groovy, and it's just that's cinema. If aliens come down to Earth, I'll show them that bit. That's cinema, lads. Now go
I think
home.
Edgar Wright has certainly watched that a few times.
I think so. Yeah.
There's a few bits in there. I was like, yeah, Edgar Wright definitely watched this before Shaun of the Dead.
I love that this was your cinematic awakening, basically. Because I think it's like that for a lot of people, especially people who end up going to film school, or like we went to learn about film and making stuff. Because I think it's he makes it look so easy. It's not. But he's like, I'm just going to take Bruce Campbell to a pole and then throw him through a car, or drag him through a bush a few times, or make him breathe underwater for like 2 minutes. I was watching the making of this morning, and it's absolutely incredible. Did you ever feel like I could do that? Like you wanted to go to film school? Or... Yeah.
It's one of the things that definitely made me want to be involved in film to an extent. And then you get to film school and you realize you can't do it. Which is, those you can't teach, and so
you meet someone who's incredibly talented and go, "Oh, that's what they do."
That's what they do precisely.
We're best do a podcast instead.
Except they weren't even invented then. We had to wait for Jake Humphrey to invent podcasts so we could do them. It's just one of those things that the movie just kind of, the scales fell from my eyes when I saw Evil Dead 2 for the first time. I was a huge film fan by that point already. I worshipped Star Wars, and that never really gripped me in the way that Sam Raimi's direction gripped me, which was just, he is showing off. There are lots of tricks. He is throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. But the fact is, for me anyway, with Evil Dead 2, 99.3% of it sticks. Like, even little things like it's kind of showing off, but it's in service of the story. When Ash first gets possessed and the evil retreats, and he wakes up as himself again. There's a really lovely, eerie 360 shot that's just really controlled. It's not drawing attention to itself. It's not wackadoodle like a lot of Raimi's camera work in that movie. But it's just this beautifully controlled 360 that starts with Ash, goes round, you see the cabin, you see the outside of the cabin, you see that it's completely clear, and then it comes back to Ash again. And then there's a very, very quick cut to him looking across and thinking about, what am I going to do next? And then very, very quick cut to him getting away in the car, the Delta Oldsmobile, which has been in all Raimi's movies. And, that's just, that's great storytelling, really economical storytelling, but just lovely, lovely technique as well. So there's so much about this movie that I love. And I should give a shout out, when I say Raimi's camera work, I mean Peter Deming as well, who was the DP. But but Raimi,
the camera's like an extra character, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It really is. Yeah. In fact, the camera is the evil a lot of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, because the evil's always the POV. It's like that psycho trick of making you feel like you're the killer, you're the baddie, you're the demon. By doing their movements through the POV of the camera.
Have you ever got to interview Sam Raimi about Evil Dead 2 with Bruce Campbell?
Yeah, I have. I've interviewed them both over the years, which is lovely.
Jealous.
One of the very first assignments I ever did for Empire. By the way, my voice has changed because I had a coughing fit about 2 minutes ago. So that's why I sound like I'm possessed. I'm not possessed. Which is exactly what a possessed person would say if they were trying to throw you off the scent.
He's possessed.
He's possessed. So anyway... one of my first assignments as a very, very young fledgling cub reporter for Empire was to write a making of The Evil Dead.
Wow.
And they set up interviews with Bruce Campbell and with Sam Raimi, and I was in hog heaven, and I got 45 minutes with Sam Raimi. This was before Spider-Man had come out, so this is 2001, and they were great. They're so nice. I've interviewed them a number of times over the years. And even though I once managed to massively piss off Bruce Campbell by writing a piece about him, after having spent some time with him in Portland, Oregon, and I wrote a piece about him, and I was told, you're a huge Bruce Campbell fan, so don't just turn it into an ass-kissing exercise. And I went too far the other way, and I had some pops at him in the piece, which I thought were friendly pops, but he took it. He didn't interpret it that way, and let's put it that way. And he wrote a letter into Empire and was very upset about it. Which made me feel terrible because this man is my hero, and but I think we're okay now. We managed to smooth it over. I've interviewed him since, and And I was like, I've apologized, and hopefully we've moved on. Hopefully we've moved on. But but over the years when I have interviewed him, he's a very, very funny guy, very witty, very, very sardonic. And Sam Raimi is a very, very nice, polite man who has a very impish sense of humor. I recently interviewed him for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but obviously hadn't interviewed him for a long time before that because he'd taken 9 years off. Not through his own volition, but yeah, I've interviewed him a number of times, but that first time was pretty special for a very, very long piece on The Evil Dead.
Brilliant.
What do you think of the Evil Dead sequels, and what do you think about the future Evil Deads?
I like Army of Darkness. I don't love Army of Darkness, and
it's very different.
It's very, very different, and sometimes I like that in my sequels. I don't think that every sequel has to conform to what made the original so great. And Evil Dead 2 is very different from The Evil Dead. You know, it's a big tonal shift. It's a live action Looney Tune for a lot of it. It's more comedy than horror, although I still think there's a lot of great jump scares that are really well orchestrated in Evil Dead 2. It's a batshit insane movie. And then Army of Darkness was basically a filmmaker who just didn't want to make another Evil Dead movie, essentially. So there are elements of it in there, but he basically wanted to make an Arthurian epic. He wanted to make a modern day Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. He wanted to make a version of that. And that's what he did. And I know other people, James Dyer at Empire thinks the Army of Darkness is the best one. I know there are people who think The Evil Dead is the best one, but I like it a lot. But, you know, it doesn't quite match up to Evil Dead 2 for me. And then the remake, which isn't really a remake, it's kind of also a sequel, Evil Dead, is fine, but I'll be lying if I said I've revisited it since it came out. It's okay. It's tonally, I guess, closer to the first Evil Dead. There's very little humor in it. And I'm excited about Evil Dead Rise. I've long given up on my dream of an Evil Dead 4. And I thought Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, was fine. But, you know, I would really have loved to see an Evil Dead 4. It's not my dream sequel, by the way. Not every answer is just is an Evil Dead related one.
We had Nick Helm on, and it was his dream sequel.
Really?
Yeah, Evil Dead 4.
I remember it because the first time I interviewed Bruce Campbell about it and Sam Raimi, back in 2001, it was, even back then, one of the first things you asked him, or one of the last things you asked him, what's happening with Evil Dead 4, because back then it was an actual thing that might have happened. And I remember Sam Raimi going, "Oh, there's a script, and we start on a barren, desolate landscape. We pull back further. It's still barren. We pull back further and further and further until we realize we're looking at a pimple, and then we pull back further and further and further, and the pimple is on Bruce Campbell's ass." He was like, "There will never be an Evil Dead 4." and I was so crushed, so gutted. But I don't know, maybe it's a good thing that it never happened, because now it can't be a disappointment.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Legacy sequels are the in thing now.
True.
Damn straight. You know,
the latest, hippest craze.
And they can be great, and they can be terrible.
They can be very, very much terrible. But I think it might be, you know, if it happens, might be up for it.
What's your most disappointing sequel? So one you went in real big on, like, I can't wait for this, and it wasn't bad, but you just like, let down.
Disappointing. Well, I'm not going to say Rise of Skywalker because I didn't go in with high hopes for Rise of Skywalker. I said The Godfather 3 would be a disappointing sequel, in that obviously the first two are the greatest movies of all time, and the third is not, although I don't think it's as bad as its reputation at the time deserves or suggests. I think it's had a rehabilitation over time, but it's still clearly not as good as the first two. But I remember watching that in the cinema. It was the first Godfather movie I saw in the cinema, and that was pretty disappointing, I have to say. You know, if you look at the long mega franchises as well, you know, there have been a couple of Bond films that have left me quite shaken and stirred. You know, Die Another Day is a terrible film for me. It's the worst Bond movie by a country mile, and I was really excited about that because of, you know, it was the 20th one, and it was a big old anniversary, and turns out to be Pierce's last movie, and that was hugely disappointing to me. Carry On Columbus, who can, you know, Who could forget being hugely disappointed by Carry On Columbus? So there's lots of the long running sequels that disappointed me. You know, the way George Romero's second Dead trilogy is disappointing. You know, the only one that passes muster is Land of the Dead. The other two are just not good at all.
What are the other two? Diary and Survival?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and it's a real shame. A real shame.
So what's the worst?
Well, there's a lot of contenders for this, weirdly enough. Pick any Terminator film made after Terminator 3, which could also be considered to be a disappointing sequel. It has a great ending, phenomenal ending, but the rest of it's a bit hit and miss. You could go for any of the Matrix sequels, with the possible exception of the last one, Matrix Resurrections, which was pretty good. For me, and this is because I'm a big comedy guy, I think comedy sequels are very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, it comes up a lot, no?
Oh my god. Having said that, I think there's some great ones. I really like Naked Gun 2.5. I'm the guy who likes Anchorman 2. But for me, I don't think anything is as bad, and I'm including Independence Day resurgence in this, in recent years, as Zoolander number 2, which was a crushing disappointment, and I would say crucially also a bad movie, and it's just unfunny, and I don't know what happened there, because I interviewed Ben Stiller, I did the feature for Empire, I think, I did, and I just don't know what happened. They talked a good game and they didn't deliver.
I watched it for the first time today, first time I'd ever seen it today, and it's horrible.
It's awful, isn't it?
It's really horrible.
Yeah.
I don't think I laughed, not even chuckled once.
It's not funny.
There's one good joke that made me laugh, and I'm an easy laugh. Believe me, I'm an easy laugh. There's a good joke where Hansel and Zoolander are basically getting a car crash, and the car crash goes on for the longest time. And I like jokes like that. I like jokes that play with time and people's perception of time, and taking a gag and stretching it out to its to its breaking point, and then maybe even a little further beyond that. And that's the only time. And then, if I remember rightly, because I haven't revisited this movie since it came out, they lay land on all four wheels, and they're totally fine. And that made me laugh.
Got like ice cream on their faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the sun and Zoolander.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. I don't want to go back. Don't make me go back.
Don't make me go
You
back.
can't make me go back.
Well, hopefully I'm
going
never
back.
watching it again after seeing it today. But,
It's awful.
Yeah, it really is.
So you didn't write the review for this one then?
No, I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure I wrote the feature, but you're testing my powers of memory here, because it was a few years ago. I remember I did a big 10-year anniversary piece where I spoke to Ben Stiller for Zoolander, which is a film I love. It's one that
It's great.
It's fantastic.
So good.
And it came out obviously 2001. It came out after 9/11, and that kind of killed its chance. There were more important things happening there, obviously, but that kind of killed its chances as a comedy of flourishing. But it's one of those little engines it could, and it's a movie I loved unabashedly whenever I first saw it. It makes me laugh so much. It's such an inventive, wild, bold, stylistic comedy. Unlike most comedies, it actually looks good, and it's just really, really funny. And I was so excited for Zoolander 2. Everything I saw in the marketing, everything I saw in the in the build up to it just looked great. And then the movie hits, and it's like they've forgotten what makes this character funny. They've forgotten
What made the character likable as well.
what made the character likable, what made the other characters likable, and it crowbars in a way that I think in a comedy sequel can feel really egregious. When you're basically just reliving past glories, and you're doing the thing in a comedy sequel because that's what worked last time. And as much as I like Anchorman 2, I think Anchorman 2 is hilarious. But Anchorman 2 does that as well with things like the battle of the anchors, the Royal Rumble at the end, but it builds on it, makes it much more epic with all these big name cameos and special effects and whatnot. But Zoolander it's a movie that just basically, it feels like they looked at it really dispassionately and tried to figure out clinically what made it funny. What do people like about this bit? Okay, we'll do that again, and it just really seems to show a lack of understanding of what made the first one so good.
No progression, is there?
There's no progression.
It feels like a film out of time, but not in a good way.
There's no gags. There's no gags that are memorable. There's no character that is memorable in a good way. Although I think it gets a little bit of an energy kick when Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig start being really weird together towards the end, which is the kind of energy that I can kind of get behind. But the rest of it, the plot, and even trying to bring in some sort of emotion and having a character like Zoolander try and grow, I think is a big mistake. I think character growth is fine, it's good, it propels movies galore, obviously. But I think in certain cases, whether it's Zoolander or Ash and Evil Dead, you should probably stay away from character growth and just have them be this kind of unknowable, unchangeable icon, really.
Yeah, and I mean, even Penelope Cruz is bad in it. Like, I guess that character's a kind of a nothing character, really. She's just there to kind of pull the story along. But
it's full of them. It's like they just wanted to go on holiday to Italy for most of it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It's not good.
My mate, on the same night, he went to the premiere, had a premiere ticket to Zoolander 2, and he had a ticket to go see The Room at Prince Charles. And he left Zoolander after an hour because it was so bad to go and watch The Room at Prince Charles.
It's like an upgrade in quality.
Yeah. I was like, how was it? Well, I left in an hour and went and saw The Room. I was like, that's not good.
That's not a good sign.
That's not good at all. That is not good. There's a character in Zoolander 2 that I absolutely despised, which is Kyle Mooney as the kind of brash young hip-hop fashion designer Dawn Atari.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
It's a performance that I think is so monumentally misjudged, and it's a character that's so monumentally misjudged, it's put me off Kyle Mooney, who, has been a kind of mainstay of SNL for the last 6-7 years, something like that, and and is by all accounts a very funny and very talented guy. But every time I see him in a sketch, I just start hissing at the screen. Just going, no, it's him again. No, he's gonna hurt me again, and I can't have that.
I think that's for most of the people in this film. The cameos are one of the worst things about it.
Yeah, they're so
Justin Bieber's.
They're so on the nose, aren't they? That's the thing. It's just like
Katy Perry,
Sting. Sting's awful in it.
Yeah.
When he's trying to pounce at the end, it looks like it physically hurts the man.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland, the orgy bit.
Yeah, that's bad. That's really
Benedict
bad.
Cumberbatch.
They make a joke about losing a baby. Like that's not okay. That's not like. Yeah. Who thought that was going to land?
It's not good. It's not good.
And it bombed, didn't it? It
did.
Got critically panned, and
I've got to be honest. When you said Zoolander 2, I was like, "There's a 2? I didn't even know there was a 2."
Yeah, I was so excited. I was massively into it. I was mega hyped. I think it came out 2 years after Anchorman 2, and so the Anchorman 2 had done pretty well. I think Anchorman 2 made 100 million in the States, and so clearly people were back in the mood for legacy comedy sequels.
Yeah,
but it hasn't had it. Yeah, it just wasn't good. It wasn't.
Was this
good.
the point that Will Ferrell said no more sequels ever again?
No more sequels.
I think that's,
I thought if Holmes and Watson had hit, we'd be on Holmes and Watson 3.
I've never finished that one.
Was that bad? I didn't see that.
Yeah. I can't blame you.
It's bad.
That's
because people have asked about like Step Brothers 2 and Elf 2, and he's like, I'm not no more sequels ever.
Yeah.
I'm never doing another sequel.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
it's a shame.
That's understandable.
I remember this coming out on the back of Anchorman 2, and I think it was on this one, and then Dumb and Dumber 2, and they all came out in a row, and they were all rubbish.
Yeah.
See, well, apart from Anchorman 2, we can all appreciate that.
Well, obviously, believe me, I know I'm very much in the minority on Anchorman 2, but I will also go to bat for Dumb and Dumber 2 to an extent. No. Yeah, there are some really, really, really funny gags in Dumb and Dumber 2. There's some terrible, terrible stuff in it as well. But there's some genuinely world-class gags that you would be if you wrote that gag, you would take the day off and just walk around the city just waving at people.
I've still never seen it.
It's got some good stuff,
or whatever it's called. Yeah, no, I've still never seen it.
Yeah,
I was waiting for someone to bring it up, but I have to give it a second watch now. If Chris says it's good,
there are several jokes that make me laugh a lot because they're so incredibly dumb, but also smart in how dumb they are. But yeah, there's some dreadful, dreadful stuff as well. So it's a very, very hedged bets recommendation.
So you were saying like there's hard comedy. Comedy's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
What are the good ones? Like, I'm trying to think. Hangover 2 and 3, they're bad ones. I struggle with good ones.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Naked Gun.
It's really difficult. I mean, it's when I did the feature for Anchorman 2, I remember speaking to Adam McKay about this and Will Ferrell, and they were like, this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do it, because it's not quite the holy grail, because there have been good comedy sequels in the past, but it's kind of really, really tricky, and you struggle to name a truly great one, I would say. I cannot believe they're making a Spinal Tap 2, which is just astonishing to me.
No,
because that's the kind of, you don't want to go there. You don't want to tread in this hallowed ground. But great comedy sequels for me would include. It depends on your definition of comedy. Is Back to the Future comedy, for example? All the Police Academy movies are obviously great comedy sequels. Austin Powers, I really like Austin Powers and
I think is a
Goldmember.
good shout. And Wayne's World 2, I think is good.
Wayne's
World
2 is
like
good
that.
stuff, yeah, as well. So I would throw both of those in. I think that Naked Gun 2.5 is hilarious. I think Naked Gun 33 1/3 is less so, but again has some great stuff in it.
Yeah.
And I would also throw in Airplane 2, the sequel, which is, not as good as the first one, but has some amazing jokes. The hit rate is pretty damn good. It has some inspired stuff. I can't remember who worked on the screenplay. So it was written and directed by a Canadian filmmaker called Ken Finkelman, and it came out in 1982, who in the same summer wrote and directed Airplane 2 and wrote Grease 2. It's one of those great kind of quirks of credits. But I know that there were other people who worked on the screenplay for Airplane 2 who would go on to work for The Simpsons and shows like that. And so they were, it was just crammed full of great jokes. There's an amazing courtroom scene where someone says to John Vernon, who's playing a psychiatrist, can you give me your impression of Ted Stryker? And he goes, I don't do impressions, my field is in psychiatry. Little things like that, which are just so funny and are worthy of the first movie. So I would say Airplane 2, the sequel. Hot Shots Part 2, which
I was
is
just going to say, I think that's better than the original.
Has one of my favorite line deliveries of all time, Miguel Ferrer going, "War, it's fantastic," and has one of the greatest and most elaborate jokes of all time, which is Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen on two riverboats passing each other, and the exact moment they pass each other, they point at each other and say, "I loved you on Wall Street." It is one of the greatest "what the fuck were they doing" jokes ever. I love that movie so much. So there you go. There's 7 off the top of my head.
There you go.
That's more than I could name.
And that's not even talked about animated stuff like Shrek 2.
Shrek 2. Yeah,
things in there that.
Better than the original. And Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz, if you're going to say that, if you take the Cornetto trilogy as sequels, which some people might, I'm going to throw a Hot Fuzz in.
I think you could shoehorn it.
I'm going to just screw it. You have Cornettos. The Cornettos are the linking material, so therefore Hot Fuzz is a sequel to Shaun of the Dead. You heard it here first. And 22 Jump Street.
Great shout.
That's a cracker.
That's a great shout. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. That's at least 10. There you go, Dave. That's material for our top 10 comedy sequels episode.
Yeah, we'll still that.
Life of Brian. There you go. Boom. Take that, people who think that comedy sequels don't work.
Just because of Zoolander 2. Do you think there is a place, maybe in 10 years, when we'll forget about Zoolander 2 and they'll do a Zoolander 3?
No. Yeah, maybe. I would love to see Anchorman 3, for example. I think there's still mileage in those characters.
I think there's mileage in those characters.
I'm not sure Adam McKay and Will Ferrell would be up for it. I know Adam McKay has spoken recently about how their working relationship is
on a break,
and their friendship has become strained, and that's a real shame. Also, I think Adam McKay is moving into just more serious filmmaking as a natural progression. I don't think he'd make even Step Brothers today, but I might be wrong about that. So I'd love to see Anchorman 3. Zoolander 3, I don't know. Ben Stiller again is someone who seems to be evolving as a director. He's just directed Severance season 1. I think he's directing Severance season 2. I don't think he's really interested in this, although it's a legacy sequel thing, isn't it? I'm going to mention a whole bunch of legacy sequels I'd love to see when we come to talk about dream sequels. And it's this idea about revisiting iconic characters 15, 20, even 30 years down the line, seeing picking up with them. What have they learned? Where are they at in their lives? What are their losses? What are their victories? What are their regrets? And that might not work with Zoolander, who shouldn't have a thought inside his head. So, it might be interesting to see an elderly runway model. What would that look like?
What's a runway model who's not ridiculously good looking?
Yeah. As long as they set the sequel in a time when it feels appropriate. They're saying about Zoolander 2, it's just completely miscast and misread the year it was released. It doesn't feel like a 2016 film.
No.
That's my problem with it.
I think one of the problems was, and the first film manages to circumvent this pretty nicely, is, the fashion world is almost beyond parody. I mean, it was literally, I can't remember which fashion brand it was, but a couple of years ago, a fashion brand brought out a range of clothes that was basically derelict from the first Zoolander movie, which was basically, looked like someone who is who is homeless, and that's the chic. That's what they wanted to look like. And you're going, I can't believe this. So this is beyond parody now. So, but as a character, you could probably take him and plant him into a different scenario. And that would be all right, I think.
Yeah, Zoolander and Axel in an old people's home. That'd be...
yeah.
That'd be
I like Owen Wilson.
I like
I
Owen
quite
Wilson,
like him
yeah.
as Hansel.
Yeah.
He tries.
He's so hot right now, Hansel. He's so hot right now.
Is there a sequel that you were surprised about? Like you went in, maybe when you were reviewing, like, oh, do I really have to do so and so? And you came out and you're like, you know what, that wasn't half bad.
Oh,
I'm thinking now.
That's a good question. Trying to think of the last one that. I'm trying to think of the other way around. So I'm trying to think about the current franchises that are.
For example, maybe you go in. Bad example for you, Mission Impossible is like after 2, you were like, oh, is there legs? And then 3, 4, 5 got better.
Yeah.
Maybe the new Suicide Squad was a bit of a surprise after the first Suicide Squad.
Except
Top Gun Maverick was a surprise,
because Top Gun Maverick was a surprise, I would say. But again, also wasn't. I think what surprised me about Top Gun Maverick was how great it is and how much I responded to it, because I'm not a huge fan of the original. And I think it's just absolutely terrific. But in terms of things that surprised me, the Suicide Squad, it surprised me how much I loved it. But then again, I think James Gunn is terrific, and I love what he's done with the Guardians movies, and so that wasn't a huge surprise for me. I'm trying to think about things that have kind of gone the other way. So I went into, we won't talk about disappointments, I went into Wonder Woman 1984. Hoping for something great, and I got Wonder Woman 1984. Obviously, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh yeah, we've had that. That's kind of
is
quite
a
a
disappointment to people. But I don't know if there was. I can't remember the last time I went into a sequel that I wasn't particularly enthused about and came out enthused. But maybe one will come to me as we're chatting. But actually, I've got a. Maybe a surprising one. This just popped into my head. But Predators. There you go.
Yes.
So there's a movie. I mean, it's probably an inverse situation from The Predator, where I went into The Predator hoping for something truly great because of Shane Black, who I worship. And again, I got The Predator, which is just a complete misfire, and his sensibilities just didn't mesh at all well with that franchise. I know he had his battles with the studio, so that wasn't great. And but Predators, I went in expecting complete tosh, and it is tosh to an extent, but it's also really fun. And so I've seen it a number of times now, Predators. So within that franchise, I think Predators is not the most recent example, but it's one that's just popped into my head.
That's a good example, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I always think of Fast 5 when we talk about this.
Oh, yes.
Because that's a really good film. Like, it has no right to be. That's really fun. And
well, yeah, I mean, as I've said on the Empire podcast, Fast 5 is the pinnacle of human existence. And it is the point from which you can chart our ultimate decline and extinction. It all ends with Fast 5, because there's no point. You might as well have stopped. From that exact moment on. Yeah, Fast 5 is a great shout, actually, because it was a franchise that you had written off. I don't know about you guys, but certainly I'd written it off. I'm not even sure I'd seen Fast and Furious when I saw Fast 5, but I remember looking at the trailer, and the trailer ends with Paul Walker riding a car on the bonnet of a car as Vin Diesel drives it off a cliff, and I was going, this isn't what I remember this franchise being. And I was
They
like,
were stealing DVDs a minute ago, and now...
what are they doing? This is madness. And so I went to see it, and it blew me away, because it's just such a fun, effervescent, off its face action movie that
Absolutely.
I don't think the franchise is even, well, some people will say Fast 7 does, but I don't think the other movies since have really even come close to it. But
I'm truly worried about where they're going to go with 10 part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
yeah,
I can't even fathom it in my head what they're going to do. Underwater?
well, they've done space, haven't they?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, maybe, we were saying all along they should do it as a musical, but it seems now that Joker 2 seems to be stealing their thunder by being a musical. That's the report. So
Really?
Gives me a headache.
Okay.
That does.
But here's the thing. I mean, I've been a vocal critic of Joker. I don't like that movie. And I woke up this morning and I saw people going, Lady Gaga is in talks to play Harley Quinn in Joker 2, which will be a musical. And my first thought was Todd Phillips needs to be stopped. This movie cannot go into production. This is going to be a terrible. The word folly is on the script, folie à deux. But I'm going to use our version of it. Folly. This feels like a folly. This is going to go terribly, terribly wrong. And and then the more I thought about it, I was like, Lady Gaga is actually pretty great casting as Harley Quinn. I can see that. And then I thought about it some more, and I went, this might be genius. this might be a great move.
When I heard about it, it made me think of the Captain America musical in Hawkeye.
Yes.
Incredibly cheesy.
Yes. I don't think it's going to be like that somehow. No. I get that feeling. But you never know. But I'm tentatively. This has got me kind of interested now.
See, this could be the answer to the question in a few years' time when you come back on. You can be like, you know what? I was surprised about Joker 2.
Joker 2 is the one that turned me round. Absolutely. From the director of The Hangover 3 and War Dogs, not Mad Dogs, comes Joker 2.
How has that happened? Anyone worked that out yet? Like his career?
He makes money.
I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made some good films. I've laughed. I've had a good time.
I've interviewed him. He's a nice guy. He's smart. He gets it. And, I prefer his comedies. But, I did not like Joker at all. I thought it was, its success baffled me. But I know that there are thousands, if not millions of people out there who would be yelling unmentionable, insults at the...
Oh, it's definitely got its fans.
The podcast device right now. So... it is what it is. But when I saw the news of Joker 2 last week, my heart sank a little bit, I must confess. And then I saw today's news and it sank a little bit further. And then I started to think about it and I was like, actually, this might be really, really great. And, don't give people a retread of the first movie, which is often, of course, the pitfall that so many sequels fall into.
Yeah.
Give them something different and give them something weird. And if he gives us different and he gives us weird and the music's good, because hopefully it'll be original songs, then great. All for it.
If they try something different, at least they have my respect. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's it. And that's
can't be a bad film then.
Can't be a bad film. You have my respect.
Have you ever watched a sequel and then didn't like it and then have to do the interviews afterwards? And how do you approach that? Do you say, hey, the costumes are nice?
Yes,
or...
many times. I have developed a routine, a formula for this over the years, which is by and large you don't discuss the film.
Wow.
Or if you do discuss the film, you just don't tell them. It's very important, I think, not to lie to people. I try not to lie to people. I did lie to someone recently.
Has anyone ever directly asked you, did you like the film?
Many times, and that's sometimes where you have to lie.
Do you just have a coffin fit in the middle of it?
You just go, tons of fun. It's a blast. But I remember once talking to, this is going to sound like shameless name dropping, but I remember talking to Kamal Nanjiani. This is on the Empire podcast, because I said to him, congratulations, I love the big sick. And he went, look me in the eye and say that. And, and I was like, oh God, Now I feel like it's going to be a tell because I genuinely love that movie. But is my eye going to go up to the left now, which indicates that I'm lying? Oh, Jesus Christ. And he was like, how many times have you had to tell people that and actually not meant it? And I went, loads, absolutely loads. So that kind of shamed me out of saying things like, congratulations on the movie, or you've done it again. Yeah, so now I just kind of don't say that, and then we get into the movie. But by and large, because I'm lucky enough, by and large, to be able to interview people who made movies that I like, that it comes up less and less these days.
Yeah, we had Ian Nathan on the show, and he told us a wonderful story about putting Speed 2 on the cover when they knew Speed 2 was not a good film.
They knew that.
Well, I think they'd already agreed to put it on the cover before they knew it was such a bad film. I think
there was rumours.
It was already on the cover, and they watched it and then went, "We've got to give it 3 stars at least."
There were rumours.
They read the script, and you had a man on in America that, I don't know, watched it saying, he was like, it's what was coming out of was not good from the studio.
It's not good. It's not good when that happens. It happens less and less these days. I guess they had it with Phantom Menace as well. Let's not get into it. Let's not get into Attack of the Clones. Let's not let's not dredge up that old corpse.
That could have been one of your answers to the most surprising sequels.
It continues to surprise me constantly. My relationship with that movie is very complicated. It doesn't even know it exists, but I know it exists.
My 7-year-old son genuinely told me the other day it's the best movie ever made. So
you know what? Weirdly enough, in case people don't know what we're talking about, obviously there's a Star Wars movie called Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and I gave it 5 stars in Empire Magazine, which may be the most infamous review in the history of this August organ, as they say. And
there's a few.
Yeah, there's a few absolute stinkers. Let's be honest. But 5 stars for Attack of the Clones at the time when the movie came out was already getting me shit, and now 20 years on, because it is 20 years on, it continues to get me shit. But I've long learned to live with it and lean into it. But what's been really weird over the last couple of years is that I find myself being approached by people, mainly online. Thankfully, who say, you know what, you were right. Attack of the Clones is fantastic. Or see, my kids have seen it and they love it. Yeah, but also I've revisited it recently and it's great. And it's got this daring do adventure, and it's got some really great stuff with Anakin, and Obi-Wan's off doing his detective stuff, and the Yoda with Dooku fighting the lightsaber, and there's some great things in that movie. I will admit. But these people are going, you were right. And then I go to them, no, I wasn't. I was wrong. You were wrong. It's terrible with some great things. Yeah. It's a complicated relationship.
Was it one of those reviews that you just had to, was it like a 1 hour deadline?
It was really tough. It was,
in your defense, Chris, I came out of it and I thought it was amazing. I even changed my MSN name to Mace Windu's the baddest motherfucker in the galaxy.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I saw it again and had some time.
I've seen it a lot recently because my son is absolutely obsessed with it, like a lot. But yeah, like I said, I messaged when he said to me it's the greatest movie ever made. I messaged Dave to say I failed as a parent.
I mean, I would take it all day long over The Rise of Skywalker.
100%.
All day long.
Yeah.
Because what it actually is, for all its faults and for all its flaws, is an actual vision by a filmmaker who knows exactly what he wants to put on screen and managed to do so. Even if that vision is then perceived by others to be clunky and a bit cartoonish and a bit clumsy, all that stuff, there isn't a single smidgen of the originality that George Lucas brings to that movie in The Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, the review of it happened, give you the Cliff Notes version, but I was very young. And it was basically my first major review for Empire, and they had, I'd worked my way up, and I had gained their trust, and they entrusted me with this review, and I promptly shoved it down their throats, and then set it on fire. And the reviews,
I'll be remembered.
Yeah, well, there are lots of reasons why I gave it 5 stars. One, it was for me a 5-star experience watching it in the cinema. The other one was we had given Phantom Menace 4 stars. That doesn't give you a lot of room to go. I even say that in a review. We gave the Phantom Menace 4 stars it's terrible. This movie's much better than that. Therefore, it should get 20 stars. But we can only go one up. So I'm going to give it 5. Another reason was, as I was writing the review, one of my colleagues, who then became my boss, sidled over to me and reminded me how amazing the Yoda lightsaber fight. He was like, "Yoda with a lightsaber, that's incredible." And I was teetering. I was going, "That might be 4, might be 5." And he was like, "What do you mean it might be 4? Yoda's got a lightsaber. Give it 5." And I was like, "Yeah, he's right. Yoda did have a lightsaber." So peer pressure.
Yeah.
This sounds like me on the car on the way home, Chris, from the film, the first time I saw it. I mean, at one point I was like, Anakin's got 2 lightsabers in his hand.
It's amazing. He kills a whole bunch of sand people. 6 stars. Take that, Tusken Raiders.
It's literally everything I said.
He falls in love. Sand gets everywhere. Have you ever seen a film before where sand gets everywhere? Lawrence of Arabia didn't complain about that. Therefore, Liz is better than Lawrence of Arabia.
I love the droids. They were in on the action. It was
Dave, this is dangerous because now I'm convincing myself again. I'm going back around. 5 stars. 5 stars for Attack of the Clones.
Well, you heard it here first.
There you go.
He stands by it. I think we've all reviewed films and we're like, oh. Like Ian Nathan said, he gave 5 to Superman's Returns, and he's like, it's not a 5-star.
It's not a 5-star film. It's not. It's again, it's got some great stuff, but the great stuff it has just reminds you of the Donner films. Yeah.
I don't know how you guys write reviews in an hour like that.
I don't do it that much these days. I've managed to kind of quietly walk away from that side of things, and hopefully, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy writing reviews. It's the part of my job I enjoy the least, and I include editing podcasts in that.
Yeah, I could feel you on that one. What is your dream sequel?
Oh my god! I mean, where do you start? There's so many. Evil Dead 4. There you go. Anchorman 3. There's tons. There's absolutely tons. When I was talking to you guys on DM about this, I was saying, I'd love to see Midnight Run 2. I love Midnight Run. I think that movie is tremendous. They tried to get a sequel off the ground. Obviously, Charles Grodin is now dead. So it looks like that has kiboshed that project. But it would have been great to see De Niro and Grodin back together again. Yeah. They've been working on an Edge of Tomorrow sequel. They've been promising this an Edge of Tomorrow sequel for years. Maybe the success of Top Gun Maverick means that they might finally give it a go. Because I'd love to see how it happens. Every now and again I'll speak to Chris McQuarrie about something else and go, "What's happening with the Edge of Tomorrow sequel?" And he goes, "We think we've cracked it. I think we've got a really good idea." So that would be a really, really fun one to see. When we were talking about legacy sequels earlier on, the one I think that got away, there's a number. I'd love to see Commando 2. I would love to see Commando 2 with John Matrix, Arnold Schwarzenegger back. Forget King Conan. Forget that. Commando 2 is where it's at. I would watch that shit 6 times in a day again. I would absolutely go nuts for it.
Could he do it?
Oh, of course he'd do it. Of course he could.
Yeah. The grandkids have been nicked this time.
Yeah. Also called Jenny. Jenny!
Yeah.
It'd be amazing. It would be terrible, but it'd be also amazing. But it made me think about Dirty Harry, because I think Dirty Harry is the one that got away from us, in a way. Because I think there have been a really interesting Unforgiven style, Unforgiven level examination of that character and interrogation of that character. A borderline fascist cop in his late 60s, possibly retired. I know some people say Gran Torino was kind of that, but it wasn't that. It wasn't Harry Callahan. And I would have loved to have seen that with a script that properly didn't celebrate the more fascistic excesses of Harry Callahan, which some of the, pretty much all of the Dirty Harry movies do, but that could have actually engaged with it and challenged it. I think it would have been interesting. Whether Eastwood, who of course, has certain political leanings, might have wanted to go there. Who knows? Yeah. But 20 years ago, now he's 90. It couldn't have happened. But
he would still do it.
He would still do it, but I think a 90-year-old Harry Callahan, he'd still direct it, and he's still, he's still hammering away, and good on him. But for me, it would have worked. It would have worked when he was 65, 70. It would have worked around that era, but presumably he never really wanted to do it. But yeah, and there's another cop thriller one which I'm really surprised they never did a sequel to, and I don't know whether you guys know this, but which is LA Confidential.
I love LA Confidential. Did they not? I thought they did a sequel. Did they not try and do a sequel? It was...
Well, they tried. So when Chadwick Boseman passed away, we interviewed a number of people who had worked with him over the years, and one of the people I interviewed was Brian Helgeland, who is obviously the co-writer of LA Confidential, won an Oscar for co-writing LA Confidential, and directed Chadwick Boseman in his first big breakout movie, 42, where he plays Jackie Robinson. And turns out the two of them were thick as thieves. They were incredible. They were so tight. They were really, really good friends. They hung out quite a lot. And Brian Helgeland and James Ellroy had developed LA Confidential 2, which, as far as I can see, as far as I can glean, was not based on any of the subsequent books that Ellroy wrote after LA Confidential had followed Ed Exley and Bud White. And so this was a brand new original story set in the 1970s that would have, I think they had agreed to do it, that would have starred Russell Crowe, would have starred Guy Pearce, and would have starred Chadwick Boseman, and would have tackled this big case in LA, would have touched on racism, and would have touched on, again, political corruption and infighting, and had this great murder mystery at its heart, and nobody wanted to do it. He had the two stars of the original movie, the ones that had been cancelled anyway, and although Jack Vincennes is dead by the end of the first movie, admittedly, but he had the two stars of the first movie, and he had one of the hottest young movie stars on the planet itching to do this movie, and no one would do it. And
what studio doesn't want that? Like that's insane that nobody picked that up.
Baffling to me.
Like that's crazy because I love LA Confidential. I love that kind of noir genre anyway. But yeah, LA Confidential is it's perfect, and I would love. I didn't know there were other books actually. So I always thought there's a world there, a world that's built and exists, and that definitely has scope for a sequel. So whoever, if you're listening, studio bosses, and we know you do tune into these things.
This is where Rich he threatens
absolutely made a mistake there. I'm telling you now.
It's akin to the people who turned down the Beatles. It's akin to all the publishing houses that turned down Harry Potter. It's maybe not quite akin to that. You're not going to become a billionaire off the back of LA Confidential too. But this could have been I haven't read the script, but this could have been a potentially great movie.
Yeah, I can't get my head around studios not thinking that's a sure thing.
No.
Yeah.
Absolute madness.
It's a strange one, but it is what it is, I guess.
I'd love to know what that script is like. That what their plans were for that movie. I'd love to. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those pitch meetings. What were they pitching that everyone went, nah? No, you're all right.
Nah. So Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce and Chadwick Boseman? No, thank you.
Nah.
Did they have a director?
I think Helgeland would have directed it because it was Curtis Hanson was the director of the first movie, but he had died by that point. So it was Helgeland. It was James Ellroy, who doesn't do a lot of stuff like this. I cannot fathom it. It's absolutely wild.
It wouldn't cost that much, really. In sort of, when you think about how much, like, I don't know, like Doctor Strange would have cost, for example.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't have cost that much to make it, surely. I don't know.
It's a shame.
That's madness.
We could scrape together.
Let's have a little lottery win, and we'll stick it together, and
let's do a crowdfunder. Let's make it happen.
I like that.
I like how this podcast is ending on a downer.
Should I bring it back up again? Go
for it.
I mean,
he's like, I've got nothing.
really, really bleak movies.
I don't want to put any pressure, but this is going to be our end of season.
Oh my god! All right, okay.
What about the Live Die Repeat sequel? Have you got any thoughts about what that would be?
No, I don't actually. I'm fascinated because I think that's one where they won't just retread. They won't just live, die, repeat.
Yeah.
So I think they'll do something really new and fresh with that concept. And I'm very, very excited to see what they do with it, because it could go absolutely anywhere.
Because I watched that for the first time today since I watched it in the cinema a long time ago, and like I'd forgotten how good it is. It's a surprisingly good movie. I thought in my head I'm like, it's Tom Cruise blasty alien stuff, and then I watched it again. And I'm like, it's a lot better than that. Yeah. It is a lot better than that. It's a lot cleverer. A lot more emotional.
For me, it's his best movie. I think it's the best Cruise. Although Top Gun Maverick has stuck its oar in, and I love obviously the Macquarie missions as well. But yeah, I think there's something about that movie. It grows every single time I watch it. It just seems to get better every single time I watch it, which is terrific. So yeah, I'd love to see the sequel for that one. You know, there are movies as well that kind of end on cliffhangers that never got a sequel, and I'd like to see some of those and see whether you could do something with that. You know, I know there's been tentative talk over the years about doing a sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing, and that would absolutely ruin the first movie. You know, well, not ruin, because I don't think that concept really truly exists. Although Alien 3 nearly destroyed Aliens for me, because of what it does to some of the main characters. Well, all the main characters actually. But the first movie, the Alien still exists. We still have it. It's still an amazing film. And you know, if they made a terrible sequel to The Thing, then you know you'll also have.
I think Christopher Nolan agrees with you about Alien 3, because he famously Christopher Nolan famously said to Fincher, like, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
You're thinking of James Cameron.
Am I? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean Christopher Nolan. Sorry.
So James Cameron said to Christopher Nolan, he saw Tenet and he went, "What were you thinking?" No, please, seriously, because I didn't understand that.
Yeah, sorry.
Like you to explain it to me.
Sorry. My brain has gone.
I need a Tenet sequel where the Tenet sequel is basically just John David Washington and Robert Pattinson explaining what happened in the first movie. That's what the Tenet sequel should be.
I would love that.
You know, because I really need it. I saw that movie 3 times. I'm still none the wiser. But The Thing, if they did a Thing sequel, I know Frank Darabont, I think maybe Frank Darabont worked on a concept for a sequel that would have picked up exactly where the first movie ended, with one of the two guys at the end, Childs or McCready, being infected. You know, could you make that? Could you make it with Wyatt Russell, for example, who is a spitting image of his dad as McCready?
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, the one you could make is you could finally resolve the cliffhanger of The Italian Job. But pick it
quite
up.
Literal cliffhanger,
but pick it up in real time. Michael Caine is still with us. They've been on that bus now for 60 years. And we pick up, and he's the only person left alive. He has eaten the rest of his crew in order to remain alive, and then because of the lack of weight of the bodies, the bus tips back onto the motorway, and he's good again. And then, age 90, Charlie Crooker gets thrown back into the game and has to do one last job.
I'd watch it.
I'd watch it. Yeah,
that's my big pitch. And of course, you guys know about the Heat sequel. That's coming out in very different form in August, I believe.
Oh right, okay.
A novel.
No.
Michael Mann.
Right, okay.
Michael Mann has co-written a novel called Heat 2, which progresses the story of the original Heat.
Okay, I thought you were talking about a movie. I was like, how have I not heard about this?
No. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Can you imagine? But yeah, just a novel, but a very interesting little way to go, I would say. You know, and if they made that as a film, how would you do that? You know, De Niro wouldn't.
Would they do Irishman?
Yeah, do all the de-aging stuff.
You would hope not, right? You would hope not.
Make them wear bigger shoes again.
This is why they have to just make them the same age they are now, but just not mention it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Italian Job, but that's my big pitch. If we're gonna make anything, if anything is gonna come of this podcast, I want a deal to make the Italian Job 2 by the end of next week, and it has to be Michael Caine, and it has to be that concept.
Okay,
fantastic.
He's a cannibal, and he's feral. and he's loose in the streets of Turin. There you go.
I mean, it's a hard sell. I'm not going to lie to you, Chris,
I reckon Michael Caine would do it. You know, if we do Jaws 4, then, you know, he'll do this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He wouldn't have to speak because he's lost the power of speech. He's devolved, Charlie, over 60 years. So he wouldn't even have to say things. You wouldn't have to do that thing you do in sequels where you really clumsily, hit the beat to the last one, or you get someone to say the same lines that were iconic. So instead of, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off, he would go,
And those were Chris Hewitt's Unequal Sequels. Oh, man, that was a good one.
What a way to finish season 3.
Yes, yeah. We always like to finish on a bang.
I think he's brilliant. I think that him as the host of the Empire podcast, I don't know if you've seen him do the Empire podcast live, but he's very funny, very knowledgeable. He can control a room and a pod, and his guests are very well. And obviously the man knows his films and passionate about his films, and his picks were brilliant, and some of the ones I've been waiting for to talk about, to be honest. So of course his best was Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2. We have talked about the Evil Dead franchise with Nick Helm, didn't we? Back in Series 2.
Yeah.
So it's nice to delve back into that and pick up Evil Dead 2 as the best sequel.
And we both watched it at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is the perfect way to watch an Evil Dead
great
movie.
Time. I remember, again, when we did it with Nick, I was watching horror movies at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, there's fun times.
And the worst Zoolander number 2.
Absolute pile of poop. Big old load of toilet.
Which, again, is on I go on about this list I made at the beginning of this, of the worst sequels I've always chat about, and it was on there. Basically, now most of them have been covered. There are still one or two that have not been covered. Blair Witch 2, if anyone's listening. That's a pretty bad sequel. Zoolander 2 is awful. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know how you can make a character that was quite likeable in the first one, so unlikable in the second one. It feels like a film out of its time. It's just not funny. The cameos don't hit.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I hate it.
Can't say anything more, Dave. You nailed it on the head.
And then his dream sequels, he kind of threw a few at us. He did Commando.
That would be a good one.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is the one both me and you watched beforehand. Yeah. And then we also talked about a new Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
The Clint Eastwood film. But I didn't want to say it while talking to Chris because I don't like to look stupid, but I can't remember what is in the Dirty Harry films. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they all roll in. I don't know how many of you've seen, but they kind of all roll into one. The only one I can really remember is the famous one, Do You Feel Love?
The first one, yeah. That's the first one.
Is that first one? Then I don't remember any others.
No, I don't think I've seen any others other than that first one. I don't.
My dad did say the other day when I said about them, he said, I've got them all in box set if you want to borrow them.
They're sort of dad kind of movies. I feel like that's kind of...
Well, Clint Eastwood is a very dad-sounding kind of movie star, isn't he?
I guess so, yeah.
But thank you so much for Chris for finishing season 2. He had been on the list for a while of people to get, and we annoyed him and we bugged him.
Persistence paid off, Dave. Persistence.
And it took a while.
Yeah.
And he did warn us.
Yeah, he did. He did say to us when we first spoke to him, he was like...
yes,
famously unavailable.
We got him. Thank you. This season's been amazing. We'll cover all of that next week when we do our best bits episode, or some of our best bits.
Yeah, we'll do a nice roundup episode of season 3 with lots of the best bits of the season on, and there are so many of them we can't fit them all in, so it's just going to be a few of the best bits, because otherwise it'd just be like a 4-hour long podcast,
and then we'll get emotional.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, I'm not going to get emotional on this one. I'm going to save that, and we'll get emotional on the next episode.
So this is the official end of series 3. Yeah. But the best of is the unofficial.
That's a little bonus for everyone.
And that's when I can sleep.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, actually, no, you can't. Because we're starting to record Series 4 next week.
This is true.
No sleep for you, Dave.
We go again. Guys, we're coming back for season 4.
Oh, yeah.
There's the announcement.
We are. We'll be back for season 4 in September. So season 4 will be back in September. And we are already starting to record guests. So
And annoy them.
Yeah, and if we annoy you, if you happen to get a message on Twitter of us annoying you to be a guest, it's because we love you, basically.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. We don't ask people on that we don't love. So there we go.
That's very true. And respect.
Absolutely.
Sounds like I don't respect some people, but if I don't...
Talking of things that I don't respect, Twitter. You can find us on all the social medias. We are at Unequal Sequel on Twitter and on Instagram. You can also send us an email. We are unequalsequel@hotmail.com. Hopefully by the time season 4 launches, I will have finished the website. So we will have a website for you to visit as well. I know I've been saying this for ages, but we're working on it. And hopefully we should be launching some Patreon stuff too. So we'll have some special fan-only stuff where you can get involved and be an extra super fan of Unequal Sequel. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. If you're a big Chris Hewitt fan, you've just tuned in for the first time, maybe you're a big fan of the Empire Film Podcast and you thought, do you know what, I'll check these guys out too, and you've liked what you've heard, go back. We've got 3 seasons of interview episodes. We've got loads of extra episodes for you to listen to. Click that subscribe button, and every time we release a new one, it'll drop into your inbox. Happy days. While you're at it, if you want to leave us a review, we would absolutely love that. 5 stars, a nice little heart, a nice little tick, even write some words if your pod shop of choice allows that. We would absolutely love it. And finally, if you could just tell your friends, if you think, I know someone who'd like that podcast, let them know. Point them our way. We'll love that. We like new people all the time. So yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah. Great outro, mate. Yeah, if you are an Empire listener and first time you've listened to us, we've also had the brilliant Helen O'Hara. She was our first ever guest. Go back, check that out, because that was also brilliant. Excuse the minor audio details. It was our first episode. If you agree with or disagree with Chris's picks, let us know. Get in contact. We will read things out at the end of the month on our monthly roundup. It's our new thing. We love people to get in touch with us. We're great. I've got nothing else to say apart from season 3 best bits next week.
It's been emotional.
Next week. And it's a poo pie from me.
It's a what now? It's a poopy?
Poo pie.
A poo pie.
I'm trying to say bye in Minion.
Oh, right, okay. That's Minion, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Poo pie. So it's a bye from me, and it's a bye from him.
Bye!
Go out and live your best life. Have fun.
Poo pie. What are you on about?